I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, police make an arrest in the case of a murdered Fallbrook family.
And San Diego City Council braces for more than 500 supporters and opponents of a controversial plan to eliminate the cap on taxi permits at their Monday meeting. Why the stakes are high and how it could impact fares. I'm Peggy Pico with both sides. Plus, the risk and rewards of space exploration through the eyes of a JPL engineer and the Mars rover Curiosity.
And Marines who fought in Fallujah are reunited at Camp Pendleton 10 years after the battle in Iraq. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. 4.5 years after the disappearance of a Fallbrook family and nearly a year after their remains were found in the desert, investigators have made an arrest. KPBS reporter Matt Bowler has this update from the newsroom.
San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department says it has arrested 57-year-old Charles Chase Merritt for the murder of the McStay family. On February 4, 2010, 40-year-old Joseph McStay, his wife, 43-year-old Summer, and their two children, 4-year-old Gianni and 3-year-old Joseph, vanished from their Fallbrook home. San Diego County Sheriff's Department launched a missing persons investigation. It was thought the family impulsively moved to Mexico, but hopes of finding the family alive disintegrated when their bodies were found in the San Bernardino County desert nearly 1 year ago. Then the homicide investigation began. Merritt was on police radar from the beginning, and just after the bodies were found, he gave an interview to the British newspaper The Daily Mail Online. In that, he said, "McStay was my best friend and we told each other everything. All I want to do is find the person who did this." At a press conference, San Bernardino Sheriff John McMahon explains how and where the family was murdered.
The cause of death was determined to be blunt force trauma, and based on the entire investigation and the evidence obtained, investigators believe these murders occurred at their residence in Fallbrook.
Sergeant Chris Fisher ran the homicide investigation for the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department. He says when the case evolved from a missing person to a murder, the whole investigation started all over again.
Again, San Diego was conducting a missing person investigation. When we got the case, we're conducting a homicide investigation. So I can't speak to their investigation as much, but I can tell you when we got it, we're looking into how these people were killed and where they were killed, so we had to go back and look at everything.
Joseph McStay's mother, Susan Blake, says she's going to see this case to the end.
Now, I received that phone call, and now there's a little more to our journey. I need justice from the law and the courts.
San Bernardino District Attorney Michael Ramos says it could become a death penalty case.
We should have a decision in the very near future whether or not we will be seeking the death penalty. We take that very serious, not only in our county but in the state of California. But this, as I indicated before, absolutely qualifies for a capital case, a death penalty case.
Merritt was arrested without incident and is charged with 4 counts of murder, 1 for each victim. He's being held without bail. Matt Bowler, KPBS News.
We have updated results tonight in the race for the 52nd Congressional District. The latest numbers show incumbent Scott Peters taking a large lead over his Republican challenger, Carl DeMaio. Peters now has 51% of the vote. He has a lead of almost 4,500 votes. The registrar says the rest of the ballots will be counted tomorrow and Monday, and you can check those updates at 5 p.m. each day right on kpbs.org. Prescription drug deaths were down in San Diego County last year, but it's still the leading cause of accidental death for people who misuse and abuse pain medication.
It's about humility, and asking for that help. Because there are many, many, many people that are willing to help, especially if you're willing to help yourself.
Audrey struggled with drug addiction 30 years before finally deciding to get help.
As I got tired of being tired and sick, that chase, it got old. And that was way more work than it is to be in recovery.
She started with painkillers at 15 and gradually progressed to other drugs. It's a persistent problem among teens and adults in the county, says Sheriff Bill Gore.
We see our overdoses from heroin and prescription drugs increasing, so there's still a lot of education to do out there.
259 people died last year from prescription overdoses in the county, a slight drop from 268 who overdosed the year before. But emergency room visits because of painkillers went up. Gore says they're seeing folks get hooked on OxyContin, then turn to cheaper drugs to feed the need.
And those are very expensive and hard to come by. One pill can cost you $80. Well, you know what's out there that gives you that same high because, OxyContin is just a synthetic heroin, is heroin.
On the upside, fewer juveniles were arrested for abusing prescription drugs last year, and pharmacy robberies were down. The takeaway message is remove unwanted drugs from medicine cabinets and be sure to talk to your children about the problem. Now, the sheriff's pilot program using an inhaler called naloxone saved 10 people from overdosing on heroin in its first 6 months. Sheriff Gore plans to expand the program next year. San Diego City Council will take up a controversial proposal next week to overhaul the cab industry. Peggy Pico talks with those for and against the plan.
San Diego taxi cab owners and drivers are at extreme odds over the plan that would eliminate a decades-long cap of 993 taxi permits in the city. On Thursday, drivers held dueling protest. Opponents say getting rid of the cap will flood the market and lead to less income for taxi cab companies, while supporters of the plan say it'll shut down an underground market for permits and improve competition with under-regulated car services like Uber and Lyft. Here in support of the plan is Sarah Saez, San Diego's program director for United Taxi Workers, and against the plan is Michelle Anderson, spokesperson for San Diego Transportation Association. Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, Sarah, aside from lifting the cap of the number of taxi permits, what else would this plan do?
This plan will do a lot, actually. What a lot of people in the public don't realize is that taxi permits are public property. They originally go for $3,000, and because of the artificial cap on taxi permits, they're being traded for upwards of $100,000 or more. So this cap lifting the cap would bring that number down, stop the unregulated market, and then it would also let drivers, 89% of drivers out there do not have their own permits. So it would allow them to become owner-operators. And economists have showed that this lifting the cap will increase services and decrease price of taxis.
So that's the cap, but it also does other things like puts a 10-year limit on the age of the cars, things like that?
Which the airport already does. The airport authority already does. And then require receipts, things like that, just basic business standards.
What kind of demand is there for more taxi permits right now? Who wants them and how do they benefit from them?
All of the drivers who have been driving anywhere from 10, 20 years or more really want to be owner-operators. Also, you see things like ride shares. The CEO of Uber actually said that he came to the San Diego market because there's not enough taxis. So those are the people that it's going to benefit. It's going to benefit a lot of people in the outer boroughs of the city who need rides.
But not everyone agrees. Michelle, why do you think opening up the market this way is a bad idea?
Well, Council Policy 500-2 has worked. And it's been in place since 2002. And what it does, Peggy, it calls for a study to determine how many taxi cabs we actually need. It determines what the demand is. And it's worked quite well, quite effectively. There's a study every 3 years. And the industry has always lived with the results. And the last study was done in 2011. The last time I checked, that was exactly 3 years ago. So it's time to do another study to determine just how many taxi cabs we need for the public and the visiting tourist.
Well, as Sarah said, Councilwoman Marty Emerald proposed this plan because the city permits are $3,000, and I understand that they are being sold at a jacked rate, underground. I don't have proof of that, but I'm told that by many people.
That's because there is no proof. That's exactly right. I'm glad you said that, Peggy, because there is no proof of that. There's absolutely no evidence.
To that.
Okay, so he's saying there's no evidence. Where did you get that number from?
Even in their own press release that we just read said, some people have invested $100,000 in these. They openly admit that they're paying these 40 times their original cost. It's on public. It's on public record.
Okay, let me get back to Michelle. This is an all or nothing proposal. Would you support a compromise, for instance, maybe double the amount of taxi cab permits?
Well, that's just it. If you raise the cap and just let any and everybody go and get a taxi cab permit, how many will we have? You correctly point out that we have 993 that are allowed on the streets of San Diego now. We don't even know if that number is going to double, triple, or quadruple. That's what a study would determine. Now, as to your scenario, I would love nothing else to perhaps put another 50 on the street or another 100 and let the market absorb those. But that's not what the proposal is that's before us now.
Sarah, would proponents of it be open to maybe not taking an unlimited cap off, or just the same?
No. So I think it's interesting the way that we use market. When you restrict anything, it is not an open market. So the market is dictating, which you can see by Uber and Lyft being so successful in the city of San Diego, that the market is saying we needed more transportation here. So as far as 50 or whatever, it doesn't matter. And as far as getting the study, the times for studies is over. An overwhelming amount of economists agree lifting the cap will be beneficial.
Let's talk about consumers. I'll
Sure.
start with you, Michelle. Okay, so the City Council has actually moved their council meeting on Monday, expecting more than 500 people to show over this very contentious or controversial issue. How is it going to impact consumers? Will fares go up if this passes?
That's exactly what we're saying. There is no demand for more taxi permits except from a class of individuals that want the city to just give them something without any evidence as to why that should be done. And that's the whole point. A study would determine that. And lifting the cap, it only increases the supply. It does nothing for the demand side.
And we'll have to end on this.
Sure.
So consumer impact, are they going to see an increase in fares?
No, economists have determined that it's going to decrease in fare. What's happening right now, since permit holders only care about the money, consumers are not being served. So therefore, there has been no innovation. There's only been exhausted drivers who are very stressed out, who are working 12 to 16-hour days. The taxi industry is disarray. If we do not lift the cap, the taxi industry will die.
Okay, well, we have a lot more of this on our website, kpbs.org. We'll be following this after Monday's meeting. So I want to say, Sarah Saez and Michelle Anderson, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
March on the colors!
Emotions were high at Camp Pendleton this morning as hundreds of Iraq War veterans and their families were reunited 10 years after the second battle for Fallujah. Many hadn't seen each other since then. They paid tribute to the 100 who lost their lives. Guest of honor for the ceremony was Richard Nutwansky, commander of the 1st Marine Division during the battle. He says it's depressing that Fallujah has fallen again to terrorists, but he emphasized the battle was successful and says a new tactic was discovered.
And that was how we could put a team together made up of soldiers, sailors, foreign troops, and really with about a week and a half to build this team, put out a Super Bowl performance.
The second battle for Fallujah was the fiercest of the Iraq War and the deadliest urban battle for Marines since Vietnam. KPBS reporter Susan Murphy has more on what the anniversary means for Marines today.
Even today, 10 years later, it's hard for Marine Master Gunnery Sergeant Terrain Kelly to talk about some things that happened during those 6 weeks in Fallujah.
We had the people shooting at us from, up the rooftops, from the houses, from the sewers, or wherever they could take a shot at us from.
The fighting was intense. Almost 100 Americans died. 600 others were injured. Kelly was one of 6,000 Marines from Camp Pendleton in Fallujah. Their mission, root out insurgents, house by house, block by block. It was the second time Marines entered Fallujah that year. In the spring, days after 4 American contractors were killed, their bodies strung up on a bridge, the Marines went in to clear the city of insurgents. In the months between those battles, insurgents in Fallujah regrouped. They planted explosives, stockpiled weapons, and dug elaborate tunnels for hideouts. That was what Marines like Kelly and other U.S. forces and coalition troops walked into.
You just had to be smart. They had to be smart. They had to be thinking on their feet the whole time, and and ready to do what they had to do. And at the same time, have control and not pull that trigger on an innocent, because you still had innocent people running around the city, so had to be really careful.
At one point, a rocket-propelled grenade hit Kelly's Humvee. He and 5 others were injured.
And as we took a left turn, and started moving down the street. We got ambushed, which made us take another left turn down another street, where we got hit by RPG rockets as we were trying to move away from the ambush.
Miguel Carrasco was a 19-year-old combat correspondent.
So my part was taking photos, documenting, telling the Marine stories while they were going through this big battle.
Shooting pictures often came seconds to shooting a gun.
Sometimes they would need me to be an extra weapon, and I had to put down my camera, and which was the case a lot of the times.
Carrasco says documenting the war was tough. The Marines eventually took control of Fallujah and secured the region through 2010.
Iraqi wounded 55, insurgents killed just over 2,000.
Major General Lawrence Nicholson commands the 1st Marine Division now. He says the fight for Fallujah is just as notable as famous World War II battles in Iwo Jima and Guadalcanal.
This will become an iconic fight that will be studied, I think, by military leaders, for a century. And I think there were so many positive aspects of how this fight occurred that I think need to be remembered.
Remembered for its tactics and strategy of fighting block by block. But now Nicholson is disappointed. After the Marines left in 2010, the Iraqi government took over security for Fallujah. Today, the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria has captured the city.
And I think our tagline for this has always been, we did our job, we did it well, and we'll just leave it at that.
Major General Nicholson says commemorating the 10-year anniversary of the battle is an important way to honor those who served and those who died.
We saw tremendous heroism at very junior levels. We saw young lance corporals and corporals, young Marines, sailors, soldiers stepping up and doing incredibly resourceful and heroic things.
He hopes the reunion will bring healing and renewed friendships.
We're going to have guys out here who haven't seen each other in 10 years. That's going to be pretty emotional. There will be some high emotions here. There will be teammates that the last time they probably saw each other was in Fallujah.
Thank you for being here today.
8 troops received the Navy Cross for their actions during the Fallujah battle. The Navy Cross is the military's 2nd highest award for valor in combat. Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
It's been a week since Virgin Galactic Spaceship 2 blew apart over the Mojave Desert. It was the 2nd mishap of an unmanned commercial rocket in a week. Earlier, Peggy Pico took a behind-the-scenes look at the risks and rewards of space exploration.
My guest Rob Manning knows a thing or two about the challenges of exploring other planets as the Mars engineering manager with NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena. And in his new book, Mars Rover Curiosity, an inside account from Curiosity's chief engineer, it offers a rare behind-the-scenes look at space exploration today. Rob Manning, welcome.
Thank you.
Now, what happens after a failed test flight or explosion like we saw last week? What are scientists doing once that happens?
Well, the first thing to do is just exactly the same thing happens with an aircraft accident. You have to pick up the pieces and figure out exactly what happened. I mean, that's number one. We do when we have a failure, and to tell you, we have many failures when we develop even an unmanned vehicle like Curiosity rover. You have to get to the bottom of it and then learn from those mistakes and do something about them.
Now, your book reveals some tense moments leading up to the rover Curiosity's landing. In fact, it's called the 7 Minutes of Terror.
Yeah.
So tell us why.
Well, the thing is, okay, when this vehicle lands, first of all, we have to teach this vehicle how to land on Mars. It has to do it by itself. We have to be smart enough to give it the smarts to figure out how to land.
So to clarify, it's not remote control. You're not controlling it from Earth.
That's right. In fact, when it lands, the time it lands on Mars, 13 minutes elapses between the time we get that signal and it arrives on Earth. So it's all over with well before we even arrives at Mars. So we have to train it to how to land, how to be a hypersonic pilot to fly through outer space. You have to teach it how to be a helicopter pilot with a jetpack and land safely on the surface of another planet.
And it's almost like a computer program when we know what happens sometimes or can happen
Yes.
with that. But let's get back to the people involved in this. Paint a picture for us of what it's like for a team when you realize that moment that this landing is successful.
Well, when you hear us all screaming and turning blue, it's because we are not just happy that our work was successful, that's obvious, but the real thing is we're very relieved. We have to go through hundreds, thousands of little things in our mind's eye with the help of computers, simulations, because we can't test this at Earth. We can test all the little pieces one at a time, but we can't put all these pieces together.
Because?
Because Mars and Earth are so different. Mars has an atmosphere only 1% the density of Earth's, and it's a very different place. And because of that, we have to do it in little tiny pieces, and that makes us very nervous.
And let's talk about these little tiny pieces, especially the part about the images sent back from Curiosity. There was a selfie. They're incredibly clear and crisp pictures coming back. What else does Curiosity do besides take pictures?
Well, it's very good at taking pictures, and some of the best pictures came from San Diego, as a matter of fact. Other things it does, it's got laboratories. It's got 2 labs. So the first time ever, we have sent a rover to Mars with laboratories that can actually taste and chemically assess the mineralogic and the chemical and the crystalline structure.
So it takes core samples and brings it back onto itself.
In fact, it takes a baby aspirin's amount of very ground fine powdered rock. And from that, we can deduce a lot about what that rock was all about when it was created. And the things that we found so exciting about this mission, on our very first attempt, drilling our very first little hole, is we succeeded in getting our most important mission objective, which was to find out whether Mars was habitable for life. Long ago, back when Mars and Earth, we think, were wet and warm, and indeed, our very first sample said yes, Mars was a place where life could have existed had it been there.
Long ago. Oh, how long is Curiosity's mission? How long is this sampling going to go on?
Well, this sampling, we hope it'll go along as long as we're funded and as long as the rover can survive. So far, it's met its primary mission objectives. It's been on Mars for over a Mars year, which is 2 Earth years. But we believe it could keep going, just like the little Opportunity rover has kept going now for over a decade on Mars. We think this rover can hopefully do just as well.
Remind us of how many rovers the U.S. has sent to Mars and how much surface area or how much of the planet have we actually seen?
Well, we sent both landers that haven't moved, the Viking landers, Mars, Phoenix lander, the North Pole of Mars, that dug into the surface of the North Pole. We sent our first rover to Mars in 1997. On the 4th of July, we landed little Sojourner rover. That was very exciting. And then we were able to put 2 other rovers on Mars in early 2004, Spirit and Opportunity. Those were our first real roving geologists. They weren't geochemists. They couldn't tell you what the rock was made of at the chemical level, but it could tell us a lot about the geologic history of Mars. And it was those rovers that discovered and proved that Mars had been wet for long periods of time.
So that was one of the unexpected discoveries. What do you hope happens from here on out?
Well,
do you think people will actually get to Mars?
I think people will eventually get to Mars. I can tell you for a fact, though, it is a very difficult flight. It's not just the time it takes to get there. The technology needed to land on Mars is actually something we're just working on right now. So there's a lot we need to invent. But someday, the day will come when people will be able to go on Mars and land and explore. Now, the first missions will be very short, but they will be there. People will be put feet on the dirt.
Looking forward to following up and hearing more about this process as it goes on. Rob Manning, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
15th Annual San Diego Asian Film Festival is underway. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando got a preview from the festival's artistic director.
Hi, my name is Brian Hu. I'm the artistic director of Pacific Arts Movement. We put on the San Diego Asian Film Festival, which is premiering here at the Gaslamp Reading Cinemas in downtown San Diego, not too far from historic Chinatown of San Diego. And we're here to watch a Chinatown film called Revenge of the Green Dragons. We've got 140 films this year from 20 countries, including countries that have never been represented before at our festival, including Kazakhstan and Brunei. We actually have the very first film ever produced in Brunei. It's called Yasmin. And then we have a film from Kazakhstan called The Owners, which just premiered at the Cannes Film Festival this year. So people often ask us, like, how do I navigate this? So what we've done is we've broken it down into sections, and in some ways we think about this as we're one big festival with kind of 5 sub-festivals. We have sections on just Asian American films, sections on pop films from Asia, entertainment films, genre films. We have a section on discovering new voices and new kind of ways of telling these stories. And this year in particular, we're really excited to be working with a center at UCSD to present this really landmark sidebar called Remembering Queer Korea. This is a retrospective of queer images in the history of Korean cinema from the 70s onwards. It's really about being curious and taking a chance on things that you would never be able to see. Because if you don't see it now, for the most part, you'll never be able to see these films again. Home base for the film festival is, as it has been for years now, the Ultra Star and Hazard Center, and we're going to be there from November 7th to the 13th.
Mostly sunny this weekend, low 80s at the beaches tomorrow. Cooler on Sunday with a mix of sun and clouds. Similar weather for the inland valleys this weekend, dropping into the mid-70s on Monday. Slightly cooler in the mountains, lots of sun, upper 60s on Monday, and upper 80s for the desert with some clouds on Monday. Tonight's stories are online at kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend.